We're starting a new chapter now in our AutoCAD Essential Training course, and we're going to be looking at object and layer properties within objects within our AutoCAD drawings. And we've got a new drawing for you. It's called Object Layer Properties.dwg, and as usual you can download that from the website to use to follow along with these particular videos. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is actually working with our object properties. And in order to do that, you want to make sure that you are in the Home tab on the ribbon, and you'll notice you have a Properties panel. And we've got some objects in the drawing. We've got a hinge on the left in the yellow. We've got a nut and bolt in the middle in the green, and we've got a keyhole in the orange color to the right. Now, all of these objects are made up of individual lines, arcs, circles, etc. But all of the objects that make up the components, the keyhole, the nut and bolt, and the hinge, all have their own individual properties. Now, those properties are defined by the layer that they are on, or they can be defined individually. So let's have a look at that and look at how the Properties panel works, and also, more importantly, how the Properties palette works as well. So, for example, let's look at the hinge on the left. If I hover over, let's say, the top line there and select it, what will happen is obviously it highlights and you can see the grips. But in the Properties panel on the Home tab there, can you see that the color is by layer? And if I hover over each of these, the line weight is by layer and the line type is by layer. The layer itself comes up in the Layers panel here and tells me that it's on the hinge layer. Now, if I just hit Escape to deselect that line and select one of the dashed lines that makes up the hinge, let's have a look at the properties again. In the Properties panel now, you can see that the color is by layer. You can see that the line weight is by layer. But this time the line type is dashed, and it is an individual line type that is individual to that particular line. So it's not adopting the actual line type that the layer specifies, that the hinge layer specifies. And that's how your object properties work in AutoCAD. Now, that's based on the Properties panel. The other way of checking out your object properties is to select an object. So we'll stay with the dashed hinge line, and I can right click and I can select Properties here on the shortcut menu. And what that'll do is it'll bring up the Properties palette, which I'll just move over here so that we can see the line on the hinge. And it's telling me that the layer is hinge, the line type is dashed there, for example. The line type scale is 1, and it's giving me all the geometry as well, all the start XYZ values and the end XYZ values and so on. Now, the benefit I have here is I can go into, let's say, line type here, click on the down arrow, and I'll change that to by layer. And you'll notice when I hit Escape now, that line is now continuous. And the reason it's continuous is that the hinge layer line type is continuous. So let's just close the Properties palette and we'll go into Layer Properties now in the Layers panel. And you'll notice there's the hinge layer, and you can see it's using a continuous line type. So that's why that line has now changed to continuous. So if I close the Layer Properties Manager and I select that line again, and I go here to the properties and give it an individual line type, which is dashed, it changes back to the dashed format that you can see on the screen. So overall, with your object properties and your layer properties in AutoCAD, you can have individual properties per object, or you can specify globally that a particular layer has properties, and you can make the objects on that layer adhere to those layer properties as well.